Presentation, take my glasses off, is creating live demos of SCP workflow end-to-end using ABAP-SCP, ABAP-SCP to ABAP. And let's see if I can pronounce your names correctly. So it's Dusan, is that right? Dusan, Sacha, and Domi Bigl.
Yeah.
So Dusan said that he's actually from Czech Republic. Okay, you didn't win the distance contest, but still, respect. And he's also working in Vienna, so you came all the way from there today. And you're working at Kadaxo as a SAP developer, developing an ABAP and JavaScript, and exploring a lot of new stuff on the cloud, so this cloud SDK is pretty relevant for you. He's also a traveler, soccer fan, and a language lover. Great. And then Domi, Domi, Bigl. So, yeah, he wins the prize for modesty. He told me to introduce him as the world's greatest SAP developer. Well, we'll see. And good sense of humor. That's what you got here, too. And a SAP development and technology consultant also at Kadaxo. And he's interested in almost everything that has to do with programming. So I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. We will show you today a live demo from the cloud platform workflow services. So we'll create a workflow. We'll call it from an ABAP backend system, and then we'll process the workflow in the cloud and write back some data from the workflow to the ABAP system. Before we start coding, we will give a short theoretical intro, and therefore I will hand over to my colleague Dusan. So, short intro of me, that's Dusan.
Yeah. So, hello. So, our topic will be SAP Cloud Platform Workflow. We did a short demo, but as Domi said, I will do a little bit of theory, and I will hand over back to him. So this is a little bit official text from SAP. What is the SAP Cloud Platform Workflow, or how can you use it? Workflow we can use for automate business processes using workflow technology, and with SAP Workflow, we can model workflow in a graphical editor. We can manage user tasks. We are a workflow inbox, and we can monitor and manage workflows. So this was a little bit official, but we will explore more. After we enable the workflow in our cloud service, we can use 3 Fiori apps. One of them is My Inbox. Another is workflow definitions and workflow instances. In My Inbox, or My Inbox app, is for the end users to take actions on workflow items. We will go to details shortly. The second app, definitions, is for administrators or for developers actually to view and start workflows. And the third is the instances. It's also for administrators or developers to check the running workflows. The next slide is a screenshot from Web IDE. This is just an example how a workflow in SAP Web IDE could look like. We see a lot of icons or items, and this is just a simple holiday approval. We prepare some data, we check the remaining holiday, then we do some yes or no questions, then manager can approve the workflow, and then we send an email, yes or no, was it approved, and then we go to end process. This is just an example how a workflow can look like. And what are all these items? There are events. Events, I think they are just self-explanatory. We have start event of the workflow. We can send some messages. We can wait for some moment, or we have a end event. We have within the workflow designer, we can use different tasks. We have user task. User task is typically a UI5 component or form for users to take actions in the workflow. we also can have an item called service task. Service task is typically used for HTTP call to external service, for example, on-premise system. We can use a script task. It's a execution of a JavaScript code on workflow data. And we can also do a mail task, typically sending a mail. Within the workflow, we can use gateways. It has nothing to do with SAP Gateway, the service, but it is only for modeling purposes. With exclusive gateways, we can model decisions, yes or no, or true false, or we have parallel gateway for splitting or merging the flow of the workflow. Also, one important thing is the context. Context is a JSON object which is sent together with the workflow instance. It's basically the data we can read, edit, delete, and it goes through the workflow instance. I also put a little bit of external content so that you can check the official documentation of the cloud workflow, or you can discover some blogs and other demos how you can start with the workflow. But that's enough for the theory. And right now we have a live demo, and I hand over to my colleague Domi.
Thanks. So we'll do a short demo. The demo use case, we will use the sub-business partner we have seen in the previous example, and more specifically, we will use contact person name. So the idea is when the contact person name gets changed, the responsible employee of the contact person get informed via workflow, and then he can approve this name change, or he can refuse it and send back the own name or the right name he knows from the contact person. To do it a little bit more graphic, so someone calls me Dominic, and Dusan refuses that and said, no, his name is Domi. So that's the idea behind this demo workflow. In the backend, as we use a backend, there's an API implemented by the REST HTTP handler and the REST resource. So this is a small framework to implement a REST API in the ABAP backend. We already prepared this. We will call it later. And for the trigger, already we have for sure triggered this workflow in the backend. I have a small report which uses the HTTP client of the SAP, and we will call two services and the workflow service. We found this all in the API Business Hub, as we saw before. So these two services will be used to trigger the workflow in the backend. From the backend in the subcloud platform workflow. So, and this is just a copy and paste cheat sheet. Now let's go to the system. First of all, we have to do is to create a new workflow in the subcloud web IDE, full stack of course. So we say new, create project from template, have to switch this category to all, and the first one is a workflow project. So we'll use this. We have to define a name for the project in my web IDE. We will call it contact person name check. So we will copy this, small typo. Contact person name check. So now we will have to create the workflow. We'll call it the same name, contact person name check, and say finish. So now a workflow project is generated in our web IDE, and the graphical editor is started, and we see a very simple workflow here. So the first thing we want to do is to provide the information, so which contact person has changed to the end user to the responsible employee. Therefore, we need a user task, so we can use the menu on the right side, or we use the quick create on the first. It's a little bit slow. We will create the quick menu on the item. We will create a user task. So user task is to show the user some information and to let them take some actions. We will create an initial user task, give it a name, check name. Then we have to add some details. The subject, of course, so please check the name. We have to add a recipient. Since this is a trail account, I'm the only recipient that it's possible, so I will take my number. You can access here, of course, the context we heard, so you can. Sorry? Oh, thanks. You can take this information also from the context, which is provided when creating the workflow. I will do it here hard-coded. So we can also assign a priority. We don't use it yet. So the next step is we need a user interface. So here you can use an existing UI5 component. We don't have any yet, so we will use a form, which can be used to provide name-value pairs. You can create this right here. We haven't any form yet. Just provide the name, CP detail, with a small revision. Just call it min details. We have the ID is generated, so let's create this form. Now we see here the form editor. We can add some sections to group fields together. We can also add some field below, but I will skip this and just copy and paste it. So let's switch to the code editor. And in my template, I have this code already written. So let's go back, insert it here, and switch back to the editor. So now we can see I have two sections, a contact person with the partner number, the first name and the last name, and also a change by section where I can see which user changed this person and when was it changed. So let's save this and go back to the workflow editor. So if we switch to the user interface, we can now see he has assigned the already created form with the right revision. So now the user can display the data. What I missed is there are also some decisions. So you can add decisions. This will be buttons on the button. Here you can add positive decisions, so yeah, yes, it's okay, or even negative positions, no, it's not allowed, or neutral, something neutral, which will be displayed great. So what we are missing is we need to send this back to our ABAP system. Therefore, we need to use the service task. Let's pretty print it and call this write to ABAP. So here we need a destination. So it's also connected to the destination service in the cloud platform. I copy and paste the destination from here. Great. That's the destination name I've configured. Our API is not from the API Business Hub, it's an other API. The path we saw here. This is our API written with the resource REST resource class. Here is the path you have to provide, and in the end you can set the name of the business partner, and it will provide you some information of this business partner, actually the number, the name, and when it was changed. So this will be our API path. We put it in here, and of course we need to set this business partner number, and we want to get it from the context, and I will copy and paste this from here. So this is the way how you can access the context. So you need to access the context object. We will have a CP detail object within the context, and this will have an attribute partner NO, so the partner number. And this will be taken from the context. So we will use a put method. We don't have any token authorization here. We also don't need any response variable and principal propagation, but we will need to send some data from the workflow to the backend, and this is grabbed here. So we want to send the business partner data back to the system, and it is grabbed from the context. So let's save this. So now we are done. We have created the workflow. What we have to do now is to deploy it to the workflow service. Just right-click, deploy, say deploy to the cloud workflow. On the right-hand upper side, we can see, okay, it's already deployed. Great. What we also need to do is to deploy the form, also to the cloud platform service. Let's deploy it. Yeah, and here it is. So now we can change the Fiori launchpad. Reload. Yes, thanks. As mentioned before, here we have the inbox app, which is for the end user, where he can see his open workflow tasks, and the other two apps are for admins and developer. We can click here on the definition monitoring, and we see, hey, here is our definition from the workflow. We already created and deployed in version 1. And we can also monitor the instances. We don't have any instance started yet, so there's nothing to do now. So now let's try to start an instance from the definition monitor. There's the button, small button, start the instance. Here you have a dummy JSON, which is provided by SAP, is useless for our scenario. We will use this initial context. So here we have the object CP details with a partner number 281 with a first name and a last name, and also the information who changed this contact person last. We will start this instance now, so it will create a new instance of this workflow definition. And we can switch to the instance monitor, and we can see here, okay, there's a new instance started. It was started by my trail account user just a few seconds ago. And here you can also see the provided context and some information what happened so far. So now we have an instance, and we can see here the inbox switched from 0 to 1, so we now have one work item for the responsible employee.
And now me as a user, I can see I have something in my inbox, and I need to check what's going on here. So I can now imagine I have another computer and I go to my inbox. As a user, I see, okay, I have something in my inbox. So let's see what's inside. An error occurred.
Yeah, Great. So let's check this in the instances.
Error messages?
No. Actually, sorry? No, that's okay. No, that's okay. Wait a second, please. Details. The version CP details. Yeah. No, that's not necessary. So we deployed both. Yep. Let's do it once more. Deploy it. Definitely deployed, yeah. Fields, and we also deployed a workflow once again. Is this the right? Yes. Everything looks fine. Let's do one more check.
Maybe refresh.
Reset. Show log. This works fine. So we have any mismatch.
Check for the what happened on the network.
Well, not here, no. Sorry? Well,
Any details?
CP detail. No. It's generated, so no idea. CP details. This is the right context. So the user is correct. This is correct. The user interface. Yeah, I know.
Name. CP details.
So it's CP detail, and the name is correct. It is wrong. CP detail. Yeah. Save. Deploy. Yeah. So now we see here the user interface. Sorry, you are the responsible employee.
I'm the responsible employee, and I can see the first name is Sitmuk, and I should say no, it's not correct because your correct name is Domi. Is it correct?
Right.
Okay. So I can type. And now I can send the workflow with one of the buttons. Please use this name. Okay, my job is done. I'm going home.
So, and now we will take a look at our simple API. We will refresh it, and we can see it has changed to Domi. Great. So, the last thing which is missing is we have to trigger this workflow from the ABAP system. So therefore we go to the API Business Hub we saw before. There are several methods for the different entities, and we are looking for a method to create a workflow. This is this endpoint, start a new workflow instance. That's great. You could test it here, but we will just take the code snippet. There are the languages we saw before. We don't need Java yet. We use an ABAP. And the first thing is that we see here is that there's no ABAP developer at the API Business Hub team, because first method, call method, is deprecated. So we just use this coding as an idea and will implement it by our own. So they use an HTTP client, call the endpoint and the specific service, and set some header fields, and in the body there's the JSON with the definition ID of the workflow, and also the JSON for the context, and this will be sent and received. So based on this coding, I've implemented a small report in our backend system. The first thing is I create my local worker class with an RFC destination. This is an HTTP RFC destination to the endpoint of my cloud platform cloud platform workflow service. The next thing is I get the data for the specified contact person. I will do the CSRF token fetch with an HTTP call, and then create the instance also with an HTTP call, provided with the platform, with the workflow definition ID, and also with the context generated up here. The last thing is just display the response and do some error handling stuff. So let's execute this report. Small description. This is our workflow definition ID we created earlier. We will take a contact person here, 281. Let's see if it works. Yeah, this happens sometimes. Cannot authenticate. We have to do it several times. Yeah, so no, it's basic out. It's just for a small demo. So now it works. It was authenticated and created. We have the response. We have the response of the. We have the ID of the created work item. Now we can go back to our inbox, do a refresh, and now we have the data here and could correct it. So it is right now, and say, yeah, use this, do it, bye-bye. And let's check one more time. And now my name is corrected, and I'm already Domi Bigl in our system. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed the demo and have a basic idea what's possible with subcloud platform workflow, and how it can integrate it in your ABAP system, and also some other systems you're using and you like to use. And now, Mahlzeit.
So let's take also one or two questions. So, and you've seen you can try this all on your subcloud from trial account for free. Try it out. It's really great.
Yes.
And easy. Good. If no questions, then let's get ahead and go upstairs.
Wait a second. I think we're going to have a quick yoga pause here, and then